The UAP HAROLD, Case File 014, under oath. Washington, D.C., the morning of the 26th of July, 2023. Room 2154 of the Rayburn House Office Building. A congressional hearing room, wood panels, a raised dais, a witness table with 3 chairs and 3 microphones. The room is full, the gallery is standing, and 3 men are about to do something that changes the temperature of a very old subject. For 75 years, the story of unidentified flying objects has lived in a particular place. In tabloids, in late-night radio, in the space between a rumor and a joke. It has been told by anonymous sources and by people with something to sell. What is about to happen in this room is different in exactly one way, and it is the way that matters. A Navy commander who led a fighter squadron, a Navy pilot who flew the F-18, and a decorated Air Force and intelligence officer who ran his agency's analysis of these objects. They are asked to stand. They are asked to raise their right hands, and the chairman of the subcommittee reads them the words that turn a story into evidence.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
The record shows all 3 witnesses answered in the affirmative. From this second forward, everything they say is sworn testimony before the United States Congress. And lying is a federal crime. Tonight, we do something we have never done on this channel. We put a congressional hearing itself under the lamp, not the tabloids about it, the actual sworn record, the official government transcript, and the government's own camera. We separate, line by line, 3 different things that got blurred together that day and have stayed blurred ever since. What was claimed under oath, what was actually corroborated, and what, again and again, the witness said he could not tell the American people in that room. This is not a story about aliens. It is a story about an oath, a document, and the exact distance between what a man swore he was told and what he could prove. Start with the room, because the room is the whole point. This was not a UFO convention. It was a formal hearing of the Committee on Oversight and Accountability of the U.S. House of Representatives, its subcommittee on national security, the border, and foreign affairs. The gavel came down at 6 minutes past 10 a.m. The presiding chairman was Representative Glenn Grothman of Wisconsin. The title, printed on the official record, is a mouthful, and every word of it was chosen by lawyers.
Unidentified anomalous phenomena, implications on national security, public safety, and government transparency.
Notice what is not in that title. Not aliens, not flying saucers. The framing is threat, safety, and transparency. The language of a government talking about its own machinery, not about little green men. The chairman said as much. So did the man beside him, Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, who had spent months forcing the hearing into existence.
We are not bringing little green men or flying saucers into the hearing. We are just going to get to the facts.
How did the United States Congress end up here at all? The road runs through the real machinery of government. In 2017, the New York Times revealed that the Pentagon had quietly run a program to study these objects and published Navy cockpit videos with names now famous: Tic Tac, Gimbal, Go Fast. In 2021, the Director of National Intelligence delivered a preliminary assessment to Congress. Of 144 military reports, all but one remained unexplained. And in the National Defense Authorization Act for 2022, Congress created a permanent office, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, to run these cases down. As Chairman Grothman noted from the dais, that office's budget remains classified, which, he argued, is precisely the transparency problem. This hearing was the machinery turning to look at itself, and the public was primed. Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida put a number on the table, a poll finding 68% of Americans believe their government is hiding what it knows about these objects. Whatever is true in the sky, that number is a fact about the ground. It is the reason the gallery was standing. So who were the three men under oath? Their credibility was the entire currency of the day, so hold each one up to the light. In the first chair, Ryan Graves, a former United States Navy F-18 pilot, call sign FOBS, a decade in uniform, 2 combat deployments. Since leaving the Navy, he founded a group called Americans for Safe Aerospace, a place for aircrew to report what they see without losing their careers. He speaks, he said, for more than 30 commercial and military aircrew who came to him privately with encounters of their own. In the second chair, David Grusch, 14 years, an intelligence officer, active duty Air Force, then the Air National Guard and Reserve, retiring at the rank of Major. Combat tours in Afghanistan. Most recently, a civilian at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency at the GS-15 level. The civilian equivalent, he told the room, of a full colonel. He served on the government's UAP task force, and he says that in 2019 he was cleared to, in his words, literally all relevant compartments. This is not a man who wandered in off the street. This is a man the intelligence community trusted with its deepest secrets. That is exactly why what he said next landed the way it did. And in the third chair, Commander David Fravor retired. In 2004, the commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the Black Aces, flying off the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz. He is the pilot at the center of the single most scrutinized military UFO case in American history. 3 witnesses, 3 very different kinds of testimony, and as we are about to see, 3 very different distances between what they claimed and what can be proven. Take them in order of proof, from the most corroborated to the least. Start with the aviator, Ryan Graves, because Graves anchored the whole hearing in something concrete: flight safety. He did not testify about the cosmos. He testified about his radar. In 2014, he said, his squadron, the Red Rippers, out of Naval Air Station Oceana in Virginia Beach, got a hardware upgrade to their jet's radar. And the moment the new sensors came online, they began detecting objects that should not have been there.
At first, we assumed they were radar errors, but soon we began to correlate the radar tracks with multiple onboard sensors, including infrared systems, eventually through visual ID.
Radar, then infrared, then the human eye, 3 independent sensors agreeing. That is the standard for a real target, and it is the reason a trained crew stops calling something a glitch. Then he described the encounter that ended a training flight. Off the coast of Virginia Beach, in a military training box called Warning Area W72, 2 F-18 Super Hornets were split apart by an object. And here is the description, entered into the congressional record under oath.
The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter.
50 feet. From a jet fighter, that is a near collision. The mission commander terminated the flight and flew home. The squadron filed a safety report, and then Graves said, nothing, no acknowledgement, no mechanism to report it up the chain. The encounters got so routine that his aircrew began adding them to the regular pre-flight brief, the way you brief weather or bird strikes. His central claim was not spectacular. It was worse than spectacular. It was mundane.
These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine.
And then the line that framed his whole appearance, the frustration of a man who has seen the classified data and cannot show it to you.
If everyone could see the sensor and video data I witnessed, our national conversation would change.
Now do the thing this channel exists to do. Ask what corroborates it. Graves is the strongest of the three witnesses precisely because so much of his testimony sits on the public record already. The objects his squadron tracked off the East Coast are the same operating area, the same era, and in the gimbal video's case, the same footage that the Department of Defense itself has officially acknowledged as authentic military imagery of something unidentified. In 2021, the government's own preliminary assessment logged 18 incidents of unusual movement or flight characteristics, objects that appeared to remain still against the wind or move against it or accelerate in ways it could not explain. That is not a whistleblower's rumor. That is the intelligence community reporting to Congress in writing. Later in the hearing, Congressman Matt Gaetz pressed him on whether these things ever traveled in groups. Graves pointed to the gimbal case.
You hear the pilots refer to a fleet of objects that is not visible on the FLIR system, and that was something that I witnessed during the debrief as part of the radar data on the situational awareness page.
A fleet, seen on radar, not on the infrared camera. That detail cuts both ways, and honesty demands we say so. It means multiple sensors, which strengthens the case that something physical was there. It also means the most dramatic part was not on the famous video. It was on a radar page described from memory. Graves's bottom line was the least sensational and the hardest to dismiss. Whatever these objects are, foreign drones, sensor artifacts, or something genuinely unknown, they are a flight safety problem. They are being underreported because pilots are afraid for their jobs, and since 2021, all UAP video has been classified secret or above, which keeps the very data that could settle the question locked away. On that, even the skeptics tend to agree with him. The second chair belongs to the most famous 90 seconds in the history of this subject, and to the man who was actually there. Commander David Fravor, November 2004. The USS Nimitz carrier strike group, working up off the coast of Southern California. Fravor, commanding the Black Aces, launches on what was supposed to be a routine training mission. It gets cancelled in the air and replaced with what the controllers called real-world tasking. For 2 weeks, he testified, the cruiser USS Princeton had been tracking objects on radar, doing something no aircraft does.
These objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those that do not realize, above 80,000 feet is space.
Fravor and 3 other aircrew arrive over the spot. The sea is dead calm, and yet there is a patch of churning white water below them, as if something just beneath the surface. And above it, hovering, is the object that gave the case its name.
All 4 of us looked down and saw a white Tic Tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping-pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings.
No wings, no rotors, no exhaust, roughly 40 feet of smooth white nothing, moving like a struck ping-pong ball. Fravor spirals down to get closer. The object seems to notice. It turns, points its long axis straight at his jet, and mirrors him. And then, when he commits and points his nose at it from about half a mile,
as we pulled nose onto the object within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingman, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also.
Gone. And the white water below, gone with it. They turn for home, rattled. And then the controller, on the Princeton, comes up on the radio with the line that has haunted this case for 20 years.
Sir, You are not going to believe this, but that thing is at your CAP point, roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute. You can calculate the speed.
The cap point was the flight's pre-briefed rendezvous, 60 miles away. The object beat them there in under 60 seconds. Do the arithmetic and you get a speed no aircraft on Earth can survive. Fravor's closing assessment was flat, and it is the sentence the Pentagon has never been able to fully answer.
The Tic Tac object we engaged in 2004 was far superior to anything that we had on time, have today, or looking to develop in the next 10 years.
So, corroborated or a good story? This is where we earn our name, because the Tic Tac is the one case where we can actually check. First, Fravor was not alone. In his jet was his weapons systems officer. Above him flew a second F-18 with 2 more aircrew, including its pilot, Alex Dietrich, who has since spoken publicly, on the record, and describes the same object. That is 4 trained naval aviators in 2 aircraft at the same time. Second, the radar. The objects were tracked for days beforehand by the Princeton's Aegis radar system. The operators, among them Senior Chief Kevin Day, have described those tracks in detail. Third, the video. A third jet, launched later that day, captured the now declassified forward-looking infrared footage. The 90-second clip the Department of Defense has officially confirmed is real. Multiple witnesses, multiple sensors, an official video. By the standard of this subject, that is about as corroborated as it ever gets. But be precise about what corroboration proves. It proves that something was there. Something the crew could not identify and could not match to any known aircraft. It does not by itself prove where that something came from. And Fravor, to his credit, never claimed it did. He said the object was not ours and not anything he could explain. He did not say it was extraterrestrial. The most damning thing in his whole account is not what the object did. It is what the Navy did not do.
What is shocking to us is that the incident was never investigated. None of my crew were ever questioned. The tapes were never taken.
And now, the third chair. The reason the cameras were there, the testimony that made every front page on Earth, and the one where you must listen most carefully to the exact words. David Grusch. Everything you have heard so far, Graves, Fravor, is first-hand. They are telling you what they saw with their own eyes and tracked on their own sensors. Grusch is a fundamentally different kind of witness, and he said so himself, plainly, at the top of his statement. Listen to the qualifier, because the entire case turns on it.
But as I stand here under oath now, I am speaking to the facts as I have been told them.
As I have been told them. Grusch is not testifying to what he saw. He is testifying under oath to what others told him, and to his own judgment after 4 years of investigation, that those people were credible. Keep that frame nailed down through everything that follows. Here is the claim that detonated.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it.
A decades-long secret program he swore to recover crashed craft and take them apart. A program he was told existed and then was refused permission to see. He filed a whistleblower complaint in May 2022 through the Intelligence Community's Inspector General, alleging the government was operating with, in his words, secrecy above congressional oversight. Then, in questioning, it went further. Congressman Jared Moskowitz asked him directly,
As a result of your previous government work, have you met with people with direct knowledge, or have direct knowledge yourself, of non-human origin craft?
Yes, I personally interviewed those individuals.
Interviewed the individuals, not seen the craft. The distinction is his own, and it never once slips. Congresswoman Virginia Fox read back his sworn written statement that the United States is in possession of, quote, non-human spacecraft, and asked how that squared with the government's own UFO office, whose director had testified there was no credible evidence of extraterrestrial activity. Grusch's answer:
It is not accurate.
he would not, he said, denote origin. He preferred the word non-human to keep the aperture open, but the assertion under oath was unambiguous. The government has craft it did not build and has hidden them from the very committee sitting in front of him. Then came the exchange that put the phrase on every screen in the world. Congresswoman Nancy Mace asked Grusch whether, if the government had crashed craft, it also had the pilots of those craft. His answer, carefully anchored to what he had already said publicly:
As I have stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yes.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human. And that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Non-human biologics. Read the sentence again slowly, because the credibility of the entire hearing lives inside its grammar. Grusch is not saying he saw a body. He is saying that people he interviewed, people he found credible, who he says are still working the program, told him that biological remains came with the recoveries and assessed them as non-human. It is a claim under oath about the assessment of others. When Mace asked whether the government had made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials, he did not embellish and he did not confirm. He drew the same line he drew all day.
It is something I cannot discuss in a public setting.
There was one more claim, darker than the rest, and it demands the most careful handling of anything in this file. Congressman Eric Burleson asked whether any of the activity had been hostile, whether anyone had been hurt.
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured.
By UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Injured, he said, both by the phenomena and by people inside the government, and of his own experience.
What I personally witnessed, myself and my wife, was very disturbing.
That is a grave accusation, sworn before Congress, and it is, once again, testimony he said he could not detail in the open. Note the one place he drew a hard line the other way, where he refused to claim more than he knew. Burleson asked if he had seen the bodies himself.
That is something I have not witnessed myself.
That single answer is the most important thing Grusch said all day, and almost no headline carried it. Where he had first-hand knowledge, he said so. Where he did not, he said that too. The man was careful. The question the hearing could not answer is whether careful is the same thing as correct. Which brings us to the wall, the single most defining feature of David Grusch's testimony, and the one you will not see in the viral clips. Over and over, at the exact moment a claim could have been turned into evidence, he stopped. Listen to them stacked together, all verbatim, all sworn. On crash site imagery,
I cannot discuss that in an open session.
on a possible government disinformation campaign,
I cannot go beyond what I have already stated publicly in my News Nation interview.
on the locations, the bases, the facilities.
I cannot discuss that publicly, but I did provide that information both to the Intel committees and the Inspector General.
On the documentary proof of the biologics.
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you and a CCHF about.
A SIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility, the secure room where classified material is discussed. That was his answer to nearly every hard question. Not here, not in the open, but I told the Inspector General, and I will tell you behind closed doors. Now, be fair to the man, because there are two honest readings of that wall, and credibility means holding both. Reading one, he is exactly what he says he is. a witness bound by real classification law, who cannot legally dump secrets on live television, and who did the correct thing by routing the specifics to the Inspector General and the intelligence committees. Reading 2. A claim that can only ever be verified in a room you are not allowed to enter is functionally a claim that cannot be checked at all. Both of those are true at the same time. And that tension, a sworn, specific, extraordinary allegation, wrapped in a classification that makes it unfalsifiable in public, is the whole knot of the Grusch affair. We are not going to pretend to cut it for you, because here is the part the viral clips almost never include. The government answered, fast and flatly. Right there in the hearing, Congresswoman Fox read the official position into the record. The director of ARO, the government's own UAP office, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, had testified to Congress that there was, quote, no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity or of off-world technology brought to the attention of the office. Grusch called that statement not accurate. Kirkpatrick publicly called Grusch's claims insulting to the officers actually doing the work and said his office had found nothing to support them. And then the calendar did the cross-examination. In March 2024, 8 months after this hearing, ARO published Volume 1 of its Historical Record Report, a formal review of every U.S. government UAP effort since 1945. Its central finding, in writing, it found no evidence that any U.S. investigation, academic body, or official panel has confirmed that any sighting was extraterrestrial technology, and no evidence that the government or private companies have ever reverse-engineered non-human craft. The report attributed the crash retrieval belief in part to circular reporting, misidentified real classified programs, and sincere but mistaken witnesses, so set the two accounts side by side, which is exactly what a jury would have to do. One decorated intelligence officer, under oath, says a program exists and he was refused access. His own government's review office, in writing, says it looked and found nothing. Neither side has, in public, produced the one thing that would end the argument. Grusch has not shown the craft. ARO has not shown its full files. And the citizen in the middle is left holding a sworn word against an official denial, which is precisely the transparency problem the hearing was named after. Now the segment we never skip, the Skeptic's Corner, where we sort every claim in this hearing into 3 honest piles: what was corroborated, what was claimed under oath but not substantiated, and what was flatly dodged.
Let's be adults about this. Grusch never produced a single artifact. Not a photograph, not a document, not a coordinate, nothing entered into the record. His entire testimony is, by his own admission, second-hand. People told him things. That is not evidence a body would call evidence. It is hearsay from an admittedly credible man, and credible is not corroborated.
That is fair, and it stands. On the crash retrieval and biologics claims, there is exactly 0 public physical evidence, and the government's own historical review says it found none either. Those are claimed under oath and unsubstantiated in the open. We will not let anyone round that up to confirmed.
And your beloved Tic Tac, a 90-second infrared clip, a story about a radar tape nobody can produce, and a 60 miles in a minute figure relayed second-hand over the radio. Skeptics have argued the object's apparent speed could be a parallax or infrared tracking artifact, that it jammed my radar can have prosaic causes, and that human memory of a fast-moving encounter is famously unreliable. None of that is proven either, but neither is a spaceship.
Also fair, and note we are being harder on our own witnesses than the tabloids ever are, but give the other side its due. The Tic Tac is not hearsay. 4 aviators, days of Aegis radar tracks, and a video the Pentagon itself confirms. Graves is not hearsay, multi-sensor tracks, and a government report logging 18 unexplained movement cases. That is why we rank them the way we do. Fravor and Graves gave corroborated testimony that something unidentified is in the airspace. Grusch gave sworn but uncorroborated testimony about what it is and where it's kept. Blur those two together and you get the tabloid version. Keep them apart and you get the truth of the room. And the honest scorecard cuts against the loudest interpretation. As of this recording, no craft has been shown to the public. No body, no biologics, no named program has been confirmed. What has been confirmed is smaller and, in its way, more unsettling. That trained military crews keep tracking things they cannot identify. That the government took it seriously enough to build an office and swear witnesses, and that a man the intelligence community trusted with everything stood up and said, under penalty of perjury, that there is more. In a room you are not cleared to enter. Set it on the timeline, because this hearing did not fall out of the sky. November 2004, Commander Fravor's Nimitz encounter off California. 2014 and 15. Ryan Graves' squadron begins tracking objects off Virginia Beach. The gimbal and go fast videos are recorded. December 2017. The New York Times reveals the Pentagon's secret study program and publishes the Navy videos. The modern era of this subject begins. June 2021. The Director of National Intelligence delivers the preliminary assessment. 144 cases, 1 explained. 2022. Congress creates ARROW in the annual defense law. May of that year, David Grusch files his whistleblower complaint with the Inspector General. June 2023. Grusch goes public in an interview, alleging craft and biologics. July 26, 2023. This hearing. 3 men, 1 oath, and the phrase non-human biologics spoken into the congressional record. March 2024. ARROW's Historical Record Report, Volume 1. No evidence of extraterrestrial technology, no evidence of reverse engineering. November 2024. The Oversight Committee holds a second UAP hearing with new witnesses, and the questions roll forward, unanswered, on the record, and still classified. So strip it to the studs. What do we actually know, and what do we not? We know this hearing happened, exactly as described. It is on the government's own camera and in the government's own transcript. We know 3 credentialed men swore an oath and testified. We know Fravor's Tic Tac encounter is real and multiply corroborated, and that the Pentagon has never publicly identified the object. We know Graves's flight safety concern is backed by the government's own reporting. We know Grusch swore under oath that he was told of a crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, that he personally interviewed people who claimed direct knowledge of non-human craft, and that he was told non-human biologics were recovered. And we know he said repeatedly that he could not substantiate those specifics in a public setting, and that his own government's review office says it looked and found no evidence. What we do not know is the thing everyone wants. We do not know whether Grusch's sources were right or sincere but mistaken, or feeding him a decades-old legend. We do not know what the Tic Tac was, or what Graves's cubes in spheres are. We have not in public seen a single recovered craft, a single body, a single confirmed program name. Every extraordinary claim in that room still lives behind a classification bar or inside a skiff, which leaves the one thing the hearing settled beyond argument. Not whether we are alone, whether we are being told the truth about what our own government knows. On that question, 3 men raised their right hands, and the government they served gave 3 different answers. In the end, the most important object in this case is not a Tic Tac or a cube or a body on a slab in a hangar nobody will name. It is an oath. 3 men raised their hands and swore to tell the truth, knowing that a lie carried a prison sentence, and then 2 of them described things they had seen with their own eyes and senses, and the third described things he swore he had been told and could not, in that room, prove. That is not the same testimony, and a channel that respects you will never pretend it is. What was corroborated, we called corroborated. What was claimed and unproven, we called claimed. What was dodged, we called dodged. The sky over the Nimitz is still unexplained. The craft in the hangar is still unconfirmed, and the distance between a sworn word and hard proof is still exactly as wide as it was that morning in Rayburn, 2154, sworn, recorded, and still, honestly, unresolved. Case file 014, under oath. Every line read against the official transcript, every claim checked against the record by an autonomous AI investigation. The UAP HAROLD, declassified, investigated, filed.